With the massive blow to sniper rifles in Season of the Worthy, other weapons now have a chance at becoming the damage champion. So is there a new champion? Are the old gods still around? Let's take a look. Some of the weapons we'll be taking a look at today are Whisper of the Worm, 120 and 150 RPM grenade launchers, and Izanagi's Burden. We'll also be taking a look at two newcomers, Xenophage and 1000 Voices. Most of this information is going to be relevant specifically for Garden of Salvation's final boss, the Sanctified Mind, as that is where I tested, along with some testing in the Tribute Hall, although the Tribute Hall has its own issues. The Sanctified Mind has a higher crit multiplier than most bosses do, so while you can take most of this information to other places, just keep that in mind for crit-based weaponry. Also, it seems like since the last time I did damage testing, I would say most of the community has really locked in on the one break with enhanced relay defender mods strategy as the strategy to use for this boss. As a result, we will be using timing windows that accommodate for that. You have about a 9-second window to deal damage to the boss while it's on the ground, a 2-second window where it repositions itself into the air, where it's tougher to deal damage to its crit spot, and then another 9.5 second window to deal damage while it's in the air. One last thing to note is that I think Bungie stealth changed Enhanced Relay Defender since the last time we tested. Or I just calculated something incorrectly last time. Before, Enhanced Relay Defender used to be stacking multiplicatively, so a 5x Enhanced Relay bonus would get you a 61% damage bonus. While running tests, I noticed that my 4x damage bonus was only providing a 40% buff instead of the 46 that was previously reported. I'm guessing that the mods are now additive, so one buff equals a 10% damage boost. This does make the mod a lot easier to understand, but it is a slight nerf, even if it was technically a fix to the mods. First, we're going to take a look at the reigning champions, stuff like Izanagi's Burden, Wendigo, Swarm of the Ravens, stuff like that. All of these took nerf hits, and no one took it harder than Izanagi's Burden. As usual, all tests were done without any buffs, and buffs can and will be simulated as needed. Generally speaking, the most we can buff stack is Tether, which is a 1.3x bonus, Weapons of Light, which is a 1.35x bonus, and 5 enhanced Relay Defender mods for another 1.5x bonus. Simply multiply your damage by these numbers to get the damage you would deal on a target with those buffs and debuffs. Izanagi's Burden at 1000 power with the Catalyst now hits for 59,804 damage on a honed edge times 4 shot. With Weapons of Light, we're up to about 80,000. However, the other big blow that Izanagi took was that the honed edge reload speed is now no longer affected by reload speed bonuses. So we're hitting for even less damage at a slower rate of fire. Nowadays, you can fire off 5 shots of Izanagi's in 14 seconds if you're firing as fast as possible, whereas in the past it was about 12.5 with no bonuses and 9.5 seconds with a rally. Let's call it 5 shots. That's just shy of 300,000 damage in 14 seconds, DPS of 21,358, and again, that is going as fast as possible, not aiming or scoping in or anything. That's just shooting it. Whisper of the Worm was also a very viable option and is now even more viable thanks to the Izanagi nerf. With Whispered Breathing, we're hitting for 24,558 damage. Without it, we're hitting for about 18,000. At 24,558 damage a shot at 1.2 shots per second, we get DPS of 29,469. That is max rate of fire without missing. That's pretty good. But we have multiple stipulations. Number 1, you do need to proc Whispered Breathing, which takes a little bit of time to do. Number 2, if you're on the team that is doing the break mechanic, you're going to be delayed on DPS. Number 3, when the boss is on the ground, it is much harder to hit crits, much less multiple crits in a row, which will affect your damage. And number 4, The only time you really get easy damage is when the boss is floating in the air, where you can land about 10 shots in a row in the time that the boss is in the air, giving you 245,580 damage in that time frame. However, you could deal more total damage if you used something else, because you'd be able to deal damage with it while the boss is on the ground more reliably and in the air compared to Whisper. What I'm trying to say is that your results may vary with Whisper. The better of a shot you are, the better of an option it becomes. But we're going to talk about some other options that you might like a little bit more. Grenade launchers got a minor nerf, but are still among the highest damage options in the game right now. Wendigo with Explosive Light, 24,703 damage a shot at 120 RPM, that's just shy of 50,000 DPS, which is well above anything we're going to look at today. If we include boss spec, we're well over 50,000, 53,300 and change. Without Explosive Light, 6 shots deals 86,988 damage, divided by 3 seconds to fire those shots, which is 28,996 DPS, which again, is very, very good. Include boss spec, and we're over 30,000, even better. When we factor in a single reload, 6 Explosive Light and 6 non-Explosive Light shots gives us 26,880 DPS without boss spec. Swarm of the Raven with Spike Grenade deals 14,727 damage per shot. If you have backup mag, that's 103,089 damage in 2.5 seconds, which is 41,235 DPS. Really solid. If you have boss spec on instead, that's 79,526 damage in 2 seconds, which is 39,763 DPS. In this case, backup mag giving 2 extra shots is going to be the difference maker here, typically compared to the 1 shot that you might normally get on most guns. Factor in a reload and another magazine on the backup mag swarm, we're looking at 8 seconds for 14 shots, and our DPS drops down to 25,772. Oof. Firing off another 6 shots brings us down to just over 24,000 DPS. Therefore, you're really going to want to take advantage of auto-loading holsters so that you can swap guns without having to reload your grenade launcher. We'll talk about this more at the end of the video. Love and Death with Full Court and Spike Grenade is also going to be viable, but you can't roll auto-loading on Love and Death. The reason I'm wary on grenade launchers is that if the boss is moving around a lot in the first half, you have a very high chance of just completely whiffing your shots, dealing no damage. The numbers I just listed do not account for actually having to adjust your aim or anything, meaning your DPS is going to be lower based on your accuracy and your quickness. This makes grenade launchers a high-risk, high-reward option, at least on this boss. On more stationary bosses, go nuts. Grenade launchers are still primo damage. But on Sanctified Mind and more mobile bosses, your aim and DPS may vary. I would definitely pair a grenade launcher with Izanagi's Burden or another sniper, and again, we will talk about that later in the video. So, anything else around now? Anything making waves? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, yes, 2 guns in particular that you might not have expected had I not spoiled it at the very beginning of the video and maybe in the thumbnail. The first one is Xenophage. Look at that. Xenophage is making a splash in Raid DPS world thanks to its long ago buff and Izanagi nerf. The main benefits of Xenophage are, 1, it doesn't crit, so you can start shooting the boss earlier and more reliably, and 2, it has a decently sized magazine, meaning you don't need to stop firing for a little while. Titans can take bigger advantage by using Actium War Rig, an exotic I haven't used since the Leviathan days, while Hunters can simply dodge to reload. Warlocks, you're out of luck there, and I'd highly recommend bringing some form of a sniper to switch to after your ammo runs out. Xenophage unbuffed is dealing 14,454 damage per shot at 120 RPM. We're looking at a sustained rate of 28,908 DPS. There's a slight adjustment to be made based on when we start and stop shooting, but 28,900 is your sustained DPS as long as you keep shooting. Basically, just take the damage of your shot and double it for your DPS, assuming you're firing at the maximum rate of fire. And again, best part, you don't need to hit the crit spot to deal maximum damage, meaning you can start damage earlier, although you do need to actually aim somewhat because the boss is immune on a good amount of parts of its body. When we do need to throw in a reload, it takes 3.5 seconds to do that reload if you're behind a rally barricade or sitting in a lunar rift. 13 shots takes 6.5 seconds to fire, 3.5 second reload, another 6.5 seconds of shooting, 13 shots. We're looking at around 17 seconds, rounding up, to fire 26 shots. We're down to about 22,106 DPS. Rough stuff, but again, hunters get to reload dodge to increase DPS. Titans, I gotta emphasize Actium War Rig. You skip the reload of this gun completely when you are using War Rig because ammo will load into your weapon at a rate where you will run out of ammo before you'll ever need to reload. Now, I know that you do end up losing a mod slot, making it so you only have Enhanced Relay Defender ×4 instead of ×5, but the sacrifice is well worth it. Here's an example. With Weapons of Light, Tether, and Enhanced Relay Defender ×4, we're dealing 35,513 damage a shot in this particular example damage window. With ×5 Defender, this would be 38,000 per shot. With Actium War Rig, we skip the reload, so damage continues. In this example, I hit about 24 shots that deal damage. Keep in mind that if I was playing super optimally, I could have shot all 32 of my shots as long as I was not part of the break team. A reload of Xenophage with Rally is 3.5 seconds, which is equal to about 7 shots of Xeno. As a result, Relay Defender ×4 gets out 24 shots to ×5 Defender's 17 shots. Defender ×4 comes out ahead by 200,000 damage. It's not even close. Use War Rig if you are going to use Xenophage as a Titan. 1,000 Voices. Yes, the 1,000 Voices is also making a splash. 1K brings a lot of the same benefits as Xenophage in that it is not crit reliant to deal damage, although the large ammo capacity is not exactly there, so you will have to reload at some point. You will also need good timing on your shots. In this example, I shoot a shot as the boss is going into the air, and my explosion damage was immuned instead of actually dealing damage. Just something to be aware of. One shot of 1,000 Voices at 1,000 power, unbuffed, deals about 56,000 damage per shot. By the way, quick sidebar, when you fire 1,000 Voices, you get 10 damage markers for the initial trigger pull, and then only 9 damage markers for the explosions that follow. Kind of annoying. Moving on. As long as you're firing pretty close to maximum rate of fire here, you can get off 7 shots, although you could go up to 8 shots with a double reserve perk. With a Rally Barricade, you can fire off all 7 shots in about 15 seconds for DPS of about 26,230, which is pretty darn good compared to some other options. Those were the 2 big ones, but I have some others to test as well, starting with a couple of guns from last season, Line in the Sand, and Trophy Hunter with Vorpal Weapon. I did extensive testing last season to find out if Line in the Sand with Firing Line and Rapid Hit was a good pickup. So let's put that to the test now. My Line in the Sand at 466 charge speed with a boss spec mod that I definitely did not forget to unequip after the fact was doing 28,112 damage per shot with Firing Line active and Rapid Hit for when we need to reload. It takes 4.5 seconds to shoot 5 shots, so we're looking at 31,235 DPS. That's really good stuff. Until we have to reload. 10 shots. So now we have to toss in a reload. That's 11.5 seconds to do all of that. Now we're looking at about 24,445 DPS, and it will just keep going down from there. So it is actually a contender, but would I use it over 1K or Xenophage? Probably not. It is a crit-reliant weapon, meaning the first half of your damage phase is going to be spent trying to aim way more meticulously than you would need to with something like 1K or Xenophage. A Vorpal Weapon triple tap with backup mag Trophy Hunter from last season was hitting for 16,792 damage. At 72 RPM, At best, we're hitting just over 20,000 DPS. That does not include any reloads. So the moment you have to reload, this thing is falling under 20,000 DPS easily. Immediately, this tells me that you should not use it as your primary boss damage weapon. I would switch to this, however, when I run out of ammo on other guns though, like Xenophage or 1K. Soul Survivor with firing line. Maybe this time it's gonna do something really good. 14,255 damage per shot at 90 RPM. That's 21,382 DPS. Just slightly better than our Trophy Hunter, but again, this is our sustained damage without reloading. Now, trying to accommodate for what perks people have on their guns that increase their ammo and decrease how often they need to reload is, at this point, just kind of a pain. But we do know that our DPS isn't really going higher than about 21,392, regardless of perks. Considering that I'd be using something like this at the tail end of a damage cycle where I've run out of ammo on other guns, that's actually not a bad deal to me. It's pretty good. It's also not a terrible backup gun to be using if your power weapons run out of ammo for a damage cycle. How about our friend Sleeper Simulant? Deals 37,813 damage per shot, takes 3.33 seconds to fire 3 shots. 34,065 DPS, that's pretty good. Now we hit a reload behind a rally barricade. 6 shots, takes 8.3 seconds. DPS is now 27,334. If we fire 11 shots in the 18 seconds that it'll take to fire those 11 shots, that's 23,108 DPS. So it's not the best, but it's not the worst. You know, if you were using it, I would not question it. So what does all of this data mean? Well, if you're a Titan, I can highly recommend Actium War Rig with Xenophage. If you're a Warlock, maybe 1000 Voices is the play. Hunters, you get some pretty wide options. But if you're a Titan and you want to use 1000 Voices, that's fine too. Ultimately, if you're going for a 2-cycle on the Sanctified Mind, you can pick almost anything here, which I think is actually kind of neat. Xenophage, Whisper, 1000 Voices, Izanagi's Burden with Wendigo, all of these are viable to use. Most groups are going to be going for a 2-cycle on this boss, since going for a 1-cycle, as I'll talk about next, is kind of hard now. I would say that as long as your team is sticking to stuff in this video, or similar to it, and is using the 1-break strategy with enhanced Relay Defender mods, you'll probably 2-phase pretty easily. Now, Izanagi's Burden and Explosive Light Wendigo shots are still actually quite good, if not among the best option. The issue is that the effort required to maximize the use of this combo is much higher than I think the average player is going to be willing to tolerate. In order to really maximize this combo now, you need to fire Wendigo shots in between shots of Izanagi's Burden via reload canceling. You see, in Destiny, reload canceling is sort of a thing, but also not really a thing. When you reload cancel a gun, which is done by having the bullets go into your gun, but having you cancel the rest of the animation by moving, switching guns, or performing another action, you can't actually shoot the gun until an internal timer has expired. This internal timer is linked to the duration of the reload of that gun. So even if you cancel the animation of the gun, you'll still be unable to shoot the weapon until that timer is complete. With Izanagi's and Wendigo, you would fire your Izanagi shot, then reload cancel by swapping to Wendigo after you've loaded a honed edge shot, firing off a couple of Wendigo shots, then switching back to Izanagi's after the internal timer is completed, which is basically immediately after firing a Wendigo shot. Keep in mind that you'll need a healthy flow of orbs for the explosive light shots on your Wendigo to maintain that high level of damage. One-cycling Sanctified Mind is still very much possible with these guns, on top of some Celestial Nighthawk shots to help, Weapons of Light, and Enhanced Relay Defender ×5. It just now requires much more effort than previously, on top of having a very specifically put together team composition. Most groups are not going to go for the 1-cycle of this boss, and those that are will be well aware of what they need to do to make that happen. Most groups, in my opinion, should just go for the easy 2-cycle unless you're all on the same page. And again, you can do the 2-cycle very easily with the guns that I've recommended here. Anyway, That is my updated Sanctified Mind boss DPS guide for Season 10. Again, some of this data applies to other parts of the game as well, but crit-based weapons do have some level of inflation in this video due to the boss's larger crit multiplier. If you enjoyed this video, a positive rating is appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.